right, give us your full name.
Alejandro Montejano.
And Alex, what happened today, man? And try to keep your composure so people can understand what you're saying. What happened?
Well, she reports herself once every week. As part of the deal, she's here as a political refugee, and she went to go report herself today, and they just arrested her there for deportation.
And when they brought her in and arrested her, what did they ask her? What did they say to her?
They said that she was going to be deported the next day, and she said that we're married and she's here as a political refugee, and they said that it doesn't matter. Everything's done. It doesn't really matter.
What are you going to do now?
I got to go find her with our kids so she won't be alone.
As a political refugee, Alejandro's wife reported to immigration authorities once a week. It was routine, and Mrs. Montejano felt safe until one day she was deported. Throughout much of the 20th century, Kern County has suffered from anti-immigrant tensions. We wanted to take a closer look at the lives being impacted by the shift in immigration policy. Geography plays some role. Less than 2 hours drive from Los Angeles over the tall Tehachapi Mountains, Kern County feels cut off from the rest of California. Oil and agriculture dominate the economy, and Republicans have controlled the political scene. In many ways, Kern County can be called Texas West.
Congress in the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s began to see was that these guys were actually settling the West and doing us a favor. And as a result, it took the Homestead Act where we began to say, let's give these guys an opportunity. Let's provide them an opportunity to have the land that they're working. And so we created the Homestead Act, and just like that, we took a group of people who were once considered to be illegal and turned them into the yeoman farmers. We turned them into the individuals who would become the backbone of America's middle class, just like that, overnight. And these were people who were on the outskirts, who were outside of mainstream America at the time. With an act of Congress, you turned a group of people who were once considered squatters and illegal, and you turned them into the backbone of American democracy. So if we fast forward to the 20th and 21st century, what we have today is we have a whole group of undocumented people who are considered illegal. The problem isn't with them, it's with the system. We have a broken system that says you need to get in line because you're here illegally. The problem is that we don't have an actual line because the system is broken. And you can talk to any immigration attorney and they'll tell you the wait is 5, 10, 15 years, and it's not even worth it. And so what we're dealing with today is we're dealing with a situation that we've dealt with in the past, but we don't have the foresight, we don't have the backbone, and we definitely don't have the ingenuity to do what we did in the past when it came to dealing with people who are undocumented, illegal, or squatters, and that's unfortunate.
According to immigration law expert Wynn Eaton, the actual wait for U.S. citizenship can be over 100 years depending on certain factors.
In the United States, we've had a very dark history when it comes to immigration law and policy. It goes back to the Free Whites Only Act in the 1790s, to the Asian Exclusion Act of 1882 and coming forward. And then it seems like at different periods in our history, we've set different demographic groups in the crosshairs. And I think largely that's based on a certain innate xenophobia that's alive in every human creature. So now we're in our crosshairs of the United States law and policy makers is Hispanic community and the Middle Eastern populations. And I'm very concerned about where we've been because it points us where we are now and where we're going in the future. And it's not a very promising picture. I generally am an optimist by nature, but this is an area of society that I'm deeply concerned about.
Mary is an undocumented immigrant living and working in Kern County. Every day she lives in fear of deportation.
¿Cómo se siente usted cuando camina por las calles y está trabajando en este país? ¿Cuál es el sentimiento que tiene?
Ahora es tristeza, es miedo. No sabes qué hacer. No sabes en qué momento te van a regresar para tu país. En qué momento se acaba el cuento de Cenicienta, se puede decir, porque este es algo bello y te mandan a un país, tu país, claro, pero donde no hay oportunidades de nada.
¿Usted se vino para acá para ayudar a su familia?
Sí, yo me vine para acá para ayudar a mi familia y porque vivíamos una situación bien difícil. Mis hijos fueron violados y amenazados y tuvimos que emigrar.
What made you decide to come share your story tonight?
Because I never thought it was going to happen to me, and I don't want it to happen to everybody else. I don't want to.
And tell us about you. Where are you born?
I'm born in Los Angeles, and I worked in the fields and in Pollo Loco right here, all day until night. And she works all night, and we pay everything. We don't get in trouble. And she doesn't have a criminal record, nothing.
Now, why is it so dangerous for her to go back to Mexico?
Because death threats and the mafia, because it's not really that safe over there. And now I have to risk myself and go over there.
So you're gonna cross the border to Tijuana to go find her?
I'm gonna go across the border. This is my country and I have to leave to go find her.
Alejandro shared his story at California State University, Bakersfield, at a legal clinic sponsored by the Center for Social Justice and the Immigration Justice Collaborative. More than 300 residents attended the event.
Beto, this is the fourth event, correct?
Yes.
And where are we at tonight?
Tonight, I think we are seeing now the reality of what we feared might happen. The Department of Homeland Security issued a memo for interior enforcement of the immigration laws, which provides a very, very broad range of discretion for ICE agents. It empowers ICE agents with much more ability to detain people for removal. And so it makes what we did tonight even that much more important. Because these are very daunting times, and people need to be aware of what they should do and should not do to avoid contact with immigration. So we really need to get together a group of lawyers that are willing to serve on the panel. And I don't want to just do 4 lawyers or 6 lawyers. I want 12. What I think would be most effective would be to reach out to as many lawyers as we can so that we have a cadre of lawyers available. We thought of entitling this whole project the Immigration Justice Collaborative. What do you think about that?
The volunteer attorneys specialize in a number of different areas of law, including criminal defense, immigration, civil rights, and employment rights.
12 licensed attorneys all in front of you from Kern County, not from outside the county, but from Kern County, from varying disciplines of law. That's just going to have a powerful, powerful visual.
The IJC has played a valuable role in addressing the fears that permeate the immigrant community.
Entonces, si un policía no tiene orden judicial, no hay necesidad ni de hablar, ni de abrir la puerta, ni es más, no me gusta. Allá se
Not only these lawyers are going to have different backgrounds, different practice areas, and can share how the imminent changes we expect the president-elect will affect them, give people a sense of empowerment.
The Immigration Justice Collaborative provides information on knowing your constitutional rights, especially unreasonable searches, immigration reform updates such as DACA and the DREAM Act, and also available legal resources.
Criminal law. We want to list criminal law. My forte.
That's it, you?
Yeah, that's you.
And David Torres, one of the top criminal lawyers in Kern County.
And so I think that what we're doing here is we're all volunteering our time to make sure that we get the word out and make sure that these folks who are scared, to give them a safety base and let them know that we're there to protect them.
They're important for a couple of reasons. Number one is there's a tremendous amount of fear in the communities, particularly in the immigrant communities, about what could be coming with the new administration. And largely, I'd like to alleviate those fears.
The purpose of the IJC is to educate and provide some measure of protection to the minority and immigrant communities that live and work in Kern County.
It is a collaborative because it's not only the lawyers. We're going to rely on the community organizers, on all the contacts you have with Latina leaders, with politicians, Hispanic Chamber.
We're here to provide education and outreach to the rural areas in Kern County.
Are you getting paid tonight?
I am not.
Why are you doing this for free?
Why am I doing it for free? Because people need to know. This is a subject that's very close to my heart, and our practice is centered. Largely, I got involved with immigration law because of a passion to keep families together and to make sure the government is held accountable when they make mistakes and wrong-headedly try to rob employers of employees that they desperately need to run their operations and try to tear families apart unnecessarily.
The outreach that we're doing to as many people as we can
In a short period of time.
before the inauguration.
Okay.
I think it's critical.
We shared Alejandro's stories with members of other historically ostracized groups in Kern County. We talked about the IJC, changes in Washington, and the community's long-standing struggle with racism. We asked each person to share their experiences with discrimination.
That is what happened to the Sikh community after 9/11. And it was really unfortunate. You know, being born and raised here, I never thought that we would be facing this kind of racism or discrimination. My mother had fireworks thrown at her door after 9/11. A lot of the Sikh community was getting harassed and called names, and there were some attacks, getting beat up. There was a gentleman shot and killed in Arizona by somebody because they believed, you know, he was a terrorist. So what was happening is the Sikh community all of a sudden was realizing, oh, we're the targets now. And I remember a lot of them would put American flags on their front door and stickers on their car to say, hey, like, we love America. We are not here to destroy this country. We've been here a long time. We're having to justify our Americanness. And then I felt like things were getting a bit better. And then Trump happened. And now we have this man who's inciting fear and hatred, and it just started all over again, and more intense, because now you have this person who's saying it's okay to group us into this category of terrorists and, you know, and label minorities as terrorists.
There was racial bias, and even at that time, it wasn't as subtle as it is now. The persons let you know exactly how they felt. First of all, they would look at you for color, and then they would size you up to see what kind of economic background you had. And actually, doing shopping out of that community area, you were treated differently, definitely. And first of all, by color alone, for me and my family.
Racism has stopped in Bakersfield, or is it still present?
You dare ask me that? Sure, it's present, and it's more subtle now because of the knowledge and the way bills and things are written, and if the community doesn't keep up with it, they do things that they don't even know they're going to jail for. They think it's okay. But no, it's worse now, because once you get in that jail system, I had a feeling that very, very few people get out unless they die.
You look at the history of Kern County. John Steinbeck wrote about it. He famously wrote about it in The Grapes of Wrath, and he wrote about the Okies. And people tend to forget locally that the people from Arkansas and Oklahoma were not initially welcomed here in Kern County. It's one of the reasons why we have some of these communities outside of Bakersfield, like Oildale, because they were literally forced out. And these were people looking for opportunities as well. They were not welcome.
My sisters, I said, our dad might have been an illegal migrant, because the vagrancy laws of 1937, when my dad came, my dad was supposed to have visible means of support, and he was supposed to have, I think, $25 in his possession. Well, I know my dad didn't have $25 in his possession, because they ran out of money in rural Arizona and had to clean out a slough with rattlesnakes in it to make enough gas money to come to California. My dad said every night he quit and every morning he went back to work.
In 1937, California passed an anti-Okie law, making it a misdemeanor to bring or assist in bringing any indigent person into the state. The law was later declared unconstitutional, but the bias remained.
And as a result, if you look at Kern County, we have this history people here in Kern County want to readily embrace, but unfortunately it's there. And then we can go from the 1930s, we can go from the Depression, jump forward into the 1960s, 1970s with Cesar Chavez, and you have the same situation. Now let's jump forward again another 40 years, and here we are today, and we're dealing with somebody like the sheriff, Donnie Youngblood, who wants to create this non-sanctuary county environment.
In 2007, 2 resolutions were presented by a Bakersfield city councilman declaring English as Bakersfield's official language and Bakersfield as a non-sanctuary city for undocumented immigrants. Both resolutions failed.
And I'm very adamant that we are not a sanctuary county, and I think that I need to say that.
Sheriff, is it your contention that if this county does not declare itself a non-sanctuary county, that the administration is going to withhold the $4 million? Have you been told that? Do we have evidence of that? Why should we believe that?
Sheriffs are placed right in the middle of that, and the crosshairs of that, between the federal and state government. All we want to do is do our job, keep our public safe, and allow the federal government to do their job, which is immigration. I can't promise you what the federal government may or may not do. I have no idea. What I do know is that I'm taking a stand for where we are in this county. This is who we are as a county, and who we should be as a country, quite frankly.
We uncovered footage dating back to 1966 of U.S. Senator Robert F. Kennedy leading hearings of the Senate Subcommittee on Migratory Labor. In the footage, Kennedy questions Kern County Sheriff Leroy Galen on his department's response to the Delano grape strike.
If I have reason to believe that there's going to be a riot started and somebody tells me that there's going to be trouble if you don't stop them, then it's my duty to stop them.
Well, then you go out and arrest them?
Well, absolutely.
And charge them?
Charge them.
What do you charge them with?
Violating unlawful assemblage.
Well, I think that's the most interesting. Who told you that they're going to riot?
The men right out in the field that they were talking to said, if you don't get them out of here, we're going to cut their hearts out. So rather than let them get cut, you remove the cause.
How can you go arrest somebody if they haven't violated the law?
They're ready to violate the law. In other words,
could I suggest in the interim period of time, in the luncheon period of time, that the sheriff and the district attorney read the Constitution of the United States?
We invited Sheriff Youngblood to explain his stance on the non-sanctuary county resolution.
What my point is that if you're in the country, illegally and you're committing crimes, I believe that you should be deported. I believe that we should have the opportunity to interact with those partners, and I believe that we shouldn't have a sanctuary for those people because I'm here to protect the victims.
It seems that the undocumented immigrant community gets blamed for a lot.
Well, certainly that exists. I mean, I can tell you without even looking at statistics that the undocumented community in Kern County is not a law enforcement problem for us by any large degree. At least I can honestly say no more than any other segment of society.
While Sheriff Youngblood clarified his views on the undocumented community, other law enforcement agencies have a more proactive approach.
Our policy, our philosophy is that regardless of an individual's immigration status, we want them, and it is necessary, that they feel safe and comfortable about reporting crime, certainly being a victim of crime or being a witness to crime. We cannot fulfill our responsibilities as a police department to this community if there are segments of our community that don't report, don't tell us what they witness out of fear. And so we try very hard to ensure that that level of, and communicate that that level of fear is not necessary, that you being a victim or a witness to a crime will not automatically lead to an immigration inquiry or deportation.
Now, I don't think that anybody in our immigrant community wants to see dangerous people, of course, in our communities of any type, be they citizen, immigrant, or undocumented. But declaring, as Sheriff Youngblood has wanted to do, a law and order county really sends a very, very strong message and really strikes a lot of fear in the immigrant community. And contrary to what Sheriff Youngblood said, there is a lot of fear in the immigrant community, and people will not come forward, and they will not, and I can tell you many, many instances where crimes have been committed, but they are afraid to call the sheriffs or the police because of fear of deportation. You know, one of the things that we have to remember is that the immigrants in our community really hold up the economy. In agriculture, in the oil fields, in the hospitality industry, in the service industry, and we know that their contributions are huge.
But in answer to the question about how Kern County would look without migrant labor, it would be a standstill. You wouldn't have crops picked. You wouldn't see almonds. You wouldn't see pecans. It would be a wasteland.
On May 2nd, the IJC attended the Board of Supervisors meeting to protest Sheriff Youngblood's presentation. The IJC continues to advocate on behalf of undocumented residents.
One of the objectives of the collaborative is to bring some sense and some reason and some rationality to what we just saw here today. As lawyers, we will be able to tell the people that the sheriff has to comply with what the law requires. He has to comply with the Constitution, and it makes the job of the collaborative now that much more important as we go forward today, so that we can inform the people really what the law requires and not what one man's rhetoric is.
The foundation, the roots of the IJC is in familia. It is a human story, because that's where it all begins. What we're trying to do is we're trying to keep families together. We're trying to make sure that everybody can grow together, and that's the entire purpose. The purpose behind these laws was to break up families. That's why we have the roots here in terms of trying to keep us all together, to make sure that we don't grow up separately and that they win in the end.
On October 5th, 2017, Governor Jerry Brown signed Senate Bill 54, making California a sanctuary state. The struggle continues.
What do you recommend to people that are watching tonight and who are here tonight? What do you tell them?
We gotta be together to help each other, and to show them that we can do it, that this whole country is one, to not fall apart in these times.
Alex, we thank you for your bravery, man. Thank you so much, brother, okay? We're here to help you, man.
Yes, sir.
3 years later, they want to know what happened with Alex.
As far as we know, she was kidnapped shortly after re-entering Mexico. She was forced, we understand, into sex slavery in Sinaloa, Mexico. At some point, she escaped. She was in bad shape. She was brutalized. She had arranged to meet her husband and some caregivers, and when they got to the destination point, she wasn't there. And as far as we know, she was recaptured and is presumed dead now. That blood is on the hands of the local ICE officers who refuse to listen to reason and show any humanity in those circumstances. Now we have a young United States citizen father with children, U.S.-born children, that have no mother.
I hope that Europe, France, and the other countries can appreciate that not all of America is like Trump, that we as Americans believe in the rule of law. We believe in treating people with dignity, with respect, regardless of the color of your skin, of your ethnicity, of your religious background. We, as Americans, believe in the Constitution and freedom for all people, which is not what President Trump believes in.